Awesome. All right. So where we're going to be diving in is page 86, bottom paragraph. And we know because Mary told us and she's the adult, because it's not me. Page 86, bottom paragraph. And just to sort of contextualize where we're at. So last week we really dove in and spoke about what we do for evening review. And then we kicked off the On Awakening directions. Now, the first directions kicked off with a prayer where it says, before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially that it be divorced from self pity, dishonest, or self seeking motives. And then we bring our mind to the attention, the focus of what do I need to do that day. And we spoke about motives. One of the few places in the book it talks about our motives. We spoke about our thought lives and our experience with that. And here is where we're diving into some directions about that meditative process. So, 86, bottom paragraph, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. So if there's something that we're struggling with, we're not sure about something we need to be doing, an action we need to take, it says here we ask. And any time in this book it says we ask, what that is a prayer. So we have a second prayer that we're finding in step 11. Who would have thought that it would be so prayer heavy? Prayer and meditation? Wild, wild. And we spoke a lot about meditation last week, but we'll touch on it again this week. Welcome, everyone. 86, bottom paragraph. So glad you're here. So here's a prayer. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. So that's the prayer. God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe. I ask for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. And then that is followed by the next direction. We relax and take it easy. And that's describing coming to this mental state of relaxation, of ease. And I'm going to point something out that might not seem intuitive. I am not relaxing and taking it easy when I'm up in my head trying to figure it out and running through all the scenarios and here's what I got to do and here's what they need to do and if they do this then I'm going to do this and then this. That is not relaxing and taking it easy. I know. Some of us are shocked by that. What do you mean? That's not super chill. And it says we don't struggle. We are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. So often when we talk about meditation, what we're talking about, and often what we think is it's about silencing the mind, and that's not always the case. What I'm trying to do is I am trying to focus my mind on something that will allow it to calm and to still. And I'm somebody that is really fun at parties, which is, like, and I really love sort of exploring the history of meditation and the history of what that practice looked like in the Oxford group. And I'll read and then listen to books like I have it right there. It's Cecil Rose. It's When Man Thinketh. I believe is what it's called. And I'll listen to books like The 8 Points of the Oxford Group. And I'll listen to these sorts of books and go through them and have experiences with them. And the practice that was common in the Oxford group is often referred to today as two-way prayer. And what would happen in regards to two-way prayer is, and forgive me if I spoke about this last week, Mary can tell me, it's like, girl, I was writing all about that. But what they would do is they would write down a question, something that they would like guidance with. And then they would read spiritual literature and then come to a place of stillness, coming to a place of expectancy and receptivity. And if I spoke about this last week, please forgive me. But if I were to ask Terry a question, hey, Terry, do you remember where we left off last week? And then he goes to a mute and then I start talking again. And then I'm like, yeah, but Terry, where did we leave off last week? And then he goes to unmute and I start talking again. I'm not going to get an answer. And I know Terry often, and I'm right there with you. So often the voice of God is a still small whisper. And I cannot open to that still small whisper when I've got the yelling that is rattling around between the ears. So I come to that place of expectancy and receptivity. I'm waiting, and what happens is there's a stillness that happens. And then my mind will be like, did I leave the candy unattended? and then I will come back to that place of receptivity. And that's the practice. And so that's what we're trying to do, is come to that place, not where I'm telling God what I need God to do, but I'm waiting to be told, where do you need me to go? What do you need me to do? And I didn't mean to kick this off with the Oxford group tangent, but while I'm here, we're tangenting. Yep, that's absolutely how you pronounce that, and I won't give it another go. It's fine. It's fine. We're off on a tangent. Whee! So welcome everyone. Bottom of 86, top of 87. So glad you're all here. So in the Oxford group, what they would do is, if they received guidance from a power, an intuitive thought, they would hold up that thought to the four absolutes. Now, the four absolutes were these principles that they were trying to live by, to be absolutely these things. And it was absolute honesty, absolute unselfishness, absolute purity. Now, before you get too freaked out about it, it's purity of motives, and absolute love. And if any guidance, any idea, any intuitive thought came, what they would do is they would hold it up to the four absolutes. They would also check each other and take it to other people. You see, a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. And we're going to talk about that. And so they would hold it up to those things. And here's the thing. If I get an idea and it lines up with being an absolutely honest idea, an absolutely unselfish idea, an absolutely pure of motive idea, and an idea that is absolutely loving, it maybe doesn't matter so much whether God gave it to me or not. It's probably a better idea than my other ideas. You get what I'm saying? When it's in line with those things, I'm probably moving towards God's will rather than when I'm not in line with those things. So that's sort of the idea. And then what they would do is they would sit a period in God's presence. And so oftentimes when we hear, oh, meditation didn't mean meditation in the 1930s. Yeah, it did. But also prayer didn't mean what I think prayer means. It means meditation. So often there were prayers that were based in a meditative practice, which is being in that contact, in that presence of that power. And again, y'all know I love to talk about the spiritual journey like it's Tinder. Step 2, I'm just believing I'm not being catfished. Step 3, I'm willing to swipe right on that bad boy. And then the rest of the steps are about building that relationship with that power. I've got to build that relationship through clearing away the stuff that's blocking me, through speaking, but also through listening, to shared experiences, to sharing each other's presence. That's how a relationship gets built. And if I'm not doing those things, I'm going to be blocked. An interesting thing is in the Oxford group, they didn't have the steps lined out like formally, like the 6 steps, do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. It was more flow. But so often in a lot of the literature that I've read about the Oxford group, not all of it, I'm not an expert, I'm just somebody who doesn't have free time, and that's what I do when I get it. So it's more a reflection of my poor character. It's like, let's read a book about us from Australia, published in 1938 by a random Oxford group member. Whee! Because I'm fun. So but often what they talk about is, if you come to that place of expectancy and receptivity, and what bubbles up is going to tell me what I need to address. So often I'm wanting God to give me the lotto numbers, or, I just want God to be like, all right, Paige, apply for this job. That's going to be your career path. There's your spouse. Go get married. I want that answer. But here's the thing, if any of us practically have had this experience, we come to a place of stillness, what often happens is like, man, I cannot believe my spouse left their socks in the lawn, like just on the floor. Or I can't believe that Paige at the meeting, she just nattered on and on about the Oxford group, and I don't care. Right. So what often comes up in that meditative practice are the things that are blocking me from this power and the things that I need to address in 4 through 9. So I'm just going to point that out and be a big smelly jerk. But you can't smell me. It's all good. All right. So it says, what used to become the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. So this begins to be a promise. This thing that I just start with begins to be how I show up to life, but not. But not if I do it once or twice. I've got to do this on a daily basis. It says, being still inexperienced and just having made conscious contact with God. And again, that word conscious, it is that with knowing. Con means with, and shus or sar means knowing. So we've just begun to have this experience of this power. It is not probable that we are going to be inspired at all times. Not every idea I have is a winner. And it says we might pay for this presumption in all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. Welcome, we're on page 87, top paragraph. So we may pay for this presumption with all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. And if you're interested, there's a story in Tradition 2 in the 12 and 12. And it happens between page 136 and 138. I'm not going to read it to us, but if you feel inclined. And it's the story of Bill Wilson. And Bill Wilson, I mean, he is broke and he is struggling. Now, I still didn't look up the year that he and Lois moved like over 50 times because they were homeless. But man, they lost their home in sobriety. They were struggling financially in sobriety. And Bill Wilson, he's having a tough time, and he does what we do when we have a tough time, and he goes to the town's hospital to find somebody to help. He finds an alcoholic to carry this message to. And after he's feeling a little better, and who reaches out to him? But Charles Towns, the owner. Oh man, the owner of the town's hospital. I had the oh man because I was like, I didn't grab the book ahead of time. If you're interested in reading more about this guy, there's a book, King Charles. It's all about the town's hospital, and it's a little out of reach, and Gary wrote it. So I always give a shout out when I can. Genuinely, so cool. And he does presentations on it. I will focus. But he was the guy that owned the town's hospital, and he's like, Bill, hey, I got an idea. I got a proposition for you. Why don't you work at the town's hospital just as a lay therapist? You do exactly what you're doing. We'll give you some money. You can have an office. It'll help you out. And Bill Wilson was doing that thing that I know none of us relate to, but pretending to be humble. Where he goes, why, yes, let me think about this proposition. Let me think about this idea. But he knows. I'm like, I'm taking that. And he goes and he's riding on the subway because they're in New York, and the thought comes to his mind, and the thought is, the laborer is worthy of his hire. And it's a quote that's found in the Bible a number of times. And he's like, oh, it's from that book. That's a pretty good book. That's got to be a spiritual thing. I'm worthy to get paid for it. And he's like, yeah, this is a good idea. He's already made up his mind, but he's going to pretend he hasn't. And he shows up, and Lois is cooking for all the drunks, and he tells Lois, he's all excited. He's like, Lois, I got this job opportunity, town's hospital, and her face falls. She's not excited about it. But he's Bill, so he's not really attuned to that sort of thing. And he's like, all right, I'm just going to tell the boys at the meeting tonight. And so he goes to the meeting, and he's talking about it. And I don't know if anyone's related to this, but you know when you're doing a share and you can tell that you've lost the room and they're not paying attention anymore? Not you guys. You're all actively listening, right? Don't worry. I'm going to toss it over to Terry real soon. But he could tell he lost the room. And he could tell that people were more and more uncomfortable. And as his talk sort of winds down, and he's talking about like, then I can get a job and I can get paid and I'm going to work and it's a great idea. And he sort of winds right down. And one alcoholic, speaking, with a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of trepidation, says, Bill, you can't do this. Bill, we know how hard it has been for you. We see that you and Lois are struggling. We've thought about things, and we want to help you. And we thought about doing a whole bunch of things to help you. But you can't do this. And the more he talks, the more courage he has. And he's like, Bill, you have often said that good is the enemy of the best, and this is a clear case of it. If you go work at the town's hospital, you will tie in Alcoholics Anonymous to the town's hospital, and we will be affiliated forever. And that's going to affect our ability to help others. And that was the voice of God. And that's why a solitary self-appraisal is insufficient. And so that's kind of the tie-in of we might pay for this presumption, all sorts of absurd actions and ideas. But it goes on to say, nevertheless, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, but that time is not simply based on time, it is time that is based on consistency with this prayer, meditation, inventory practice. But with that, we find that our thinking will, as time passes, be more and more on the plane of inspiration. We have come to rely upon it, and that is our experience. So I'll toss it over to you, Terry. Pew pew.
Thanks, Paige. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in there. I was just thinking when you were talking about um, contacting people and you don't let them answer the question, you talk over them. And I kind of, I look at my experience with that, especially when I'm in an unrecovered state or I am just listening to I'm just stuck in the bondage of self. I mean, who has done that is talk to people looking for an answer and then you talk over them before they even speak, or you won't even let them speak. And that's because I'm not in a meditated state of mind, because I'm living in a life of self will, right? The more you practice this stuff, the more it becomes a working part of your mind. I think that's probably the key thing, um, because that becomes less and less apparent. You start to listen. I mean, I'm a shitty listener. My wife says I'm not. I don't listen. I think I said this last week. Yeah, my wife says I don't listen to her, but that's true, and it's not true. It's true. I'm not listening to her. It's not true. It's because I'm listening to the story that's in my head rather than listening to the words that are coming out of her mouth. I'm trying to think about what I want to say after she's done talking, and that's called bondage. And I can't get out of that unless I'm practicing this. And the more and more I do it, it's like it starts off as a hunch or it starts out occasionally, but that's the whole point of it. I mean, if you're going to learn a new language or learn an instrument, you got to start somewhere. You got to learn how to play the notes. You got to learn one, two, three, four, five. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, but you just got to start somewhere. And all of a sudden, you're, solving long division and X, Y, and Z. You got geometry. I don't care. The more you practice it, it grows stronger, right? It's a spiritual muscle. And the more offsetting that comes when you start thinking about what you want to say, rather you just become a better listener. That's what we're trying to do in step 11 is become a better listener. Okay, let's go back on it. All right. We usually conclude the period of meditation with a prayer that would be shown all through the day what our next step is to be. And that always confused me. I'm like, period of meditation, when did we start meditating? When I first read this, I was like, oh, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. We start meditation when we're writing inventory. That's a form of focused thinking. All right. And then the prayer is also included in there. So it's prayer and meditation is together. So this is the conclusion of it. What the hell am I going to do with this meditation? Is take this state of being or this meditated state of mind out with my step 10 all throughout the day. That is the goal, right? So what my a prayer that should be shown throughout the day, what my next step is to be that I be given whatever I need to take care of such problems. I like using page 70 when it comes to that with questionable situations. Pause, ask God, what should I do in this questionable situation? Ask for strength, ask for sanity, because I might be insane in that moment. Who knows, here's another prayer we ask, especially for freedom from self will and are careful to make no requests for ourselves. I just got a little memory, a little flashback to when I first read this. Kind of cool. And the first time I was going through this with one of my sponsors, He told me to memorize the third step prayer, and that didn't happen overnight. It took a long time to memorize. But I made a prayer that made sense to me in terms of freedom from self will. And he asked me and he directed me to have my I had a phone at that time, I guess an iPhone. And I set my alarm for every 30 minutes. And when it would go off, I would say that prayer. I would ask God to separate me from the bondage of self, take away my difficulties. Victory over them may bear witness. How this is. And I did it every 30 minutes. And it just, yet again, the more you practice it, it just becomes part of who you are, it becomes a part of working part of your mind, it becomes part of your nucleus, part of every fiber of your being. And then yet again, how are you going to learn how to play an instrument? You got to start somewhere. And in order to, play that symphony or play that awesome guitar solo, you got to start by learning the basic notes, right? And the more I practiced that, it became a way of life. That's what we're doing here. This is our way of life. It's the first, I believe, well, I feel like I've heard this from many people. I think 10% of the program is steps 1 through 9, and 90% of it is 10, 11, 12. Right? What the hell is the point of doing the steps? Is to live them. That's it. That is it. I get so worked up on mechanics, and I get so worked up on the approach or the style of going through the steps and then going through it over and over and over again. I'm going to miss the point. I'm going to miss this conscious contact with this power. Instead, I'm trying to manage and control the steps in order to make my life better, but that doesn't work. And we're going to notice it tells us not to pray for ourselves. Okay, we'll get to that. We was from and careful not to make requests for ourselves only. Right. So we may ask for ourselves, however, if others could be helped. Now I've tried using God conscious to gamble at the roulette table. I'm like, red or black, God, what should I do here? Pause. Okay, red, and then I don't hit. And then the next time I hit, ooh, here we go, pay. And then the next time I don't. And then I hit again. Oh, okay. No, it just doesn't work when I do it for myself. I think my experience with that, the first time I had a real experience with that was the first time someone asked me to speak. I think about 6 years ago, someone asked me to speak at a meeting, and it was a 20-minute lead. And I was like, oh my God, 20 minutes is forever, Paige. Now I can't even say my fucking name in 20 minutes, right? You know, just kidding. But I all day I'm thinking about what I want to say. Anyone been in a meeting and thought about what you want to say after the speaker's done sharing? Anyone conduct a lead or a 30-minute share and thought about what they want to say? Yeah. Yeah. That's what happened to me. And I was like, oh my God, I have arrived. This is what was going through my mind when I was first out. I want people to love me. I want applause. I want smiles. I want to make everyone laugh. I want all that crap. I want accolades. I want awards. That's all that was going through my head. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about? I want to talk about something real cool, but I don't know what to say. And I'm asking God, what should I talk about? And nothing. I was not getting nothing from God. Nothing. All freaking day. And I'm delivering pizzas, and I was so upset because I couldn't figure out what I was going to talk about. This is like maybe 12 hours deep into thinking about what I want to share about at a meeting that's going to happen at night. And I'm crossing the street, and I'm jaywalking across the street. And I was like, I had the pieces right here. I'm like, you know what, God, just get me out of the way so I can help one of your kids tonight. Boom. Bam. Hit me like a lightning bolt. And you know what it said? This intuitive sense inside of me said, it's not about you. And I was like, not about you. I'm like, holy shit, it's not about me. And it's about someone who's hurting, sick and suffering, right? And it's funny because later on that day, I spoke about the jaywalker because I was jaywalking across the street. This is, and it's fine. I'm speaking tonight at midnight, and that little talker comes back. That little fucker comes back. All right, he likes to crop up, and he's like, "What are you going to talk about?" And I'm like, "I don't know what the hell I'm going to talk about. I think I'm just gonna whatever happens is going to happen." And that's where I'm at, and that's because I've come to rely upon this power. I've come to rely on this inspirational thinking. And that's something that I had to let go. I mean, I kind of think of it as a step six moment where I'm not planning anything. I'm just letting God demonstrate through me what God can do. That ain't easy to happen, unless I let go completely. And I would never get to that point unless I was practicing this. And it was funny because I was like, it's not about you. You know where I read that from? It's from A Purpose Driven Life by Rick, was it Rick Warren? Great book. That was one of the first chapters, and I think I was reading it. And I could never figure out where that inspiration came from. But there it is. All right, it says, many of us wasted a lot of time doing that, and it doesn't work. Go and try it. Go and try it. Go pray for your ass all day for good things to happen and see if it works. No, I recommend that you do it. I highly, highly suggest. And then you'll see that nothing goes the way that you want it to go. That means that something's in the way. There's too much of you, right? Period. You could easily see why. Okay. All right, back to you, Faith.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, that's the thing. And like this whole process is about me getting out of the way so this power can flow through me and I can be of help to and use to others. That's the whole point. And so oftentimes, not you guys, but oftentimes other people will sort of read the book out of context and overthink and get a little black and white. Not you guys. You guys go with the flow all the time, but somebody like me. And I would read something like that. It's like, I'm not allowed to pray for myself. Well, what does that mean, right? And just get a little rigid and a little black and white with it. And so what it's saying is exactly like Terry was talking about. I'm not praying, let me do a good share so everybody likes me. Or let God, I call it the get me a pony prayer. And I can dress up the get me a pony prayer. I'm like, get me a pony. We can name him Clip Clop and he can be my service pony. And I'll go around and use him to do service. Like I can dress it up, but I ought not ask for a pony. What am I asking? I'm asking exactly the prayer that Terry was saying. And to be fair, in meditation, in inventory, I will often illuminate the things in me that are blocking me. And I can see, man, I'm judgmental. I'm short-tempered. I'm being selfish in this area. Like we can sometimes often see the things in ourselves that are blocking us. And if they're coming up in inventory, if we're seeing that we're making amends for them, it's not selfish to be like, okay, God, you've helped me to see this. I'm willing for you to take it in its entirety. There's no harm in asking God. I pray that I would be patient, tolerant, loving, kind, considerate to everyone that I would meet today. That's not the selfish prayers that we're talking about. And I believe it was last week, but talking about that idea that's how often do I treat God like a vending machine? And I have the little sticker design that I made that was like validation vending machine. I'm like, because I'll treat people that way too. I'm like, validate me, A1, thank you, but I'll treat God in that way. And I'll be like, career B4, Mr. Right, or Mr. Right now, or Mr. Right out of jail. That'll be C6. I'll take him, you know. Oh, and extra red flags. Let me put some coins in for that. I'll take those. You know what I mean? Like, I treat God like a vending machine. But if I were to treat somebody in my life like that, it's not going to be an effective relationship. And I also heard this. It was one of when you hear something that just calls you out and hurts your feelings because it's true. So this was that for me. I remember one time saying, God is not your painkiller. And I was like, oh, calling me right out. And of course, I would go to this power when I'm in pain. But why am I not going to cultivate and deepen and build a relationship? And here's my experience. I don't know what's good for me. I genuinely don't. If I got what I wanted, ooh, gosh, you guys, it would not be good. It'd be a luxury dumpster I'd be pissing my pants behind. That sort of deal. Like a lady, pinkies up with the crack pipe. Like that, but that's how I would be showing up. How often do the things that I need come at the expense of what I think I want? I don't know what's best for me and how often, because I think when I'm in pain, I think you got to take the pain away. I'm in pain, take the pain away, but pain has a purpose. If you think about it on a physiological level, if I put my hand on a hot stove, the nerve receptors are supposed to tell me I'm in pain so that I move it. Pain is an indication that something within me needs to change. Either my perspective and how I see the situation, or my actions and how I show up to that situation. So pain is important. If I treat God, just make it go away, I miss the opportunity to grow with God through that pain. And what happens here in these 12 steps is the things that I bring the pain to, they get transformed. And I get transformed. But it doesn't happen when I'm just avoiding the pain. Dear God, make him change. I've been trying so hard to change him, and it's not working, so you can step in. That's what we're talking about. It's not that one. I can change him. The blue of his eyes matches the blue of his grippy socks. And, and the brown of his hair matches the color of AA coffee. It's meant to be. Alrighty. The red flags just look like flags when we got rose-colored glasses. All right. So it says, if circumstances warrant, we ask our wives or friends to join in meditation. And man, if you're feeling like you're missing deep, meaningful connection, like human connection, if you feel like you're missing a sense of community, man, if I'm praying with others, if I'm meditating with others, if I'm taking inventory with others, man, that is how I have developed. Now, I'm not perfect, and I still sometimes struggle, but that's where those deep relationships in my life have come from. When we're taking spiritual actions together. It says if we belong to a religious denomination which requires a definite morning devotion, we attend to that also. So, if you have a particular faith or you have particular spiritual actions which resonate with you, amazing, do it. Have the crystals, unless it's meth, but all the other ones you can have. If you no, shouldn't have made that joke, my bad. Do the yoga, do the stuff. Like, if you feel called to it, do it. And if you're like, Paige, does the book tell me to do that? Well, here's the next sentence. It says, if not members of religious bodies, we sometimes select in memories a few set prayers which emphasize the principles we have been discussing. There may be helpful books also. Suggestions about these may be obtained by one's priest, minister, or rabbi. Be quick to see where religious people are right. Make use of what they offer. And so I get to, in the 11th step, this is where I get to do some fun stuff. And I get to shake it up a little bit. And I get to sprinkle in some stuff that I feel called to do. Like, there is fun. Now, I can't have that fun if I don't have that consistency with it. I need to have that consistency with prayer and meditation. But I can tell you, man, I have had incredible experiences being willing to seek. And one of the things that I picked up on early on was the idea of having a prayer book. And I'll share with you, I got a prayer book. And yes, it's an Avengers notebook that I got for $1.50 at Bianca Moore's Liquidation Superstore. Because I was probably in my 20s when I got this bad boy. And it's just an empty notebook that I filled with prayers. All the prayers from the book that I found, prayers that I found from other places, prayers that, I had some people that were in my life that were religious. Yeah, you've seen it in real life. Yeah, you have. Yeah, it's a thing. And if anyone's interested, I do have a recording of all the prayers that I say in the morning and night. And somebody took the recording and used AI to transcribe it. So I got that stuff somewhere. If you're ever interested, bug me about it. I'll send it to you. But what was cool about it was asking like people who were religious but not in 12 step, because you can't ask somebody in 12 step what's their favorite prayer, because they're just going to give you the St. Francis, the 3, the 7, you know what I mean? They're not going to give you some spicy new prayer often. And so I was asking people, from other walks of life, various faiths, and some of the like prayers that have been just so helpful. Actually, I'll share one with you guys. One came from when I visited a mosque, and I asked the gentleman, "Do you have a prayer that you like? Do you have a prayer that you love?" And he said, "When I feel God's presence, I say thank you, and when I don't, I say, help me to see you." And that was one. And another prayer that has been just so helpful that people have just resonated with is, God, help me to not quit, to keep walking, to keep trying. Help me to see into a faith that there's help and happiness ahead. Help me to keep my chin up. Help me to know that it will be all right in the end. Help me to trust in you and believe in good things to come. And it's that, like, when things aren't going well, just help me to get through it. One of those. And it has been so useful to others. And the more that I seek, the more that I have, but seek and still grounded in this, in these 12 steps, man, the more experiences that I have and the more that I have to share with others. And there is so much fun in growing and seeking. Now, if we still have like a lot of religious trauma, or we're just not open, keep in mind, it's like there's books, there's videos, podcasts. Like, it's 2025, meditation apps. There are so many ways to seek and to grow. And if you feel that connection in your heart and you feel that call, great, try it, but not instead of these 12 steps, with these 12 steps. When we talk about take what you like and leave the rest, that only applies to the 11th step, and not with prayer and meditation, but with some of the other fun things that we can do. And the ritual, the root of the word spiritual is ritual. There is value in doing repetitive actions that carry meaning. There's value in it. But I've got to do this to clear away the stuff inside of me that's blocking me from this power. So yeah, that has always been the sort of like ticket for like fun and growth and seeking in a whole variety of different ways. And I've had powerful experiences because I was willing to seek. And I get called in different directions at different times in my life, and just being open. And it's incredible what happens. And it's incredible how it confirms what I know to be true, which is that the 12 steps are absolute pure spirituality. Because if it is true, it is true, and you will find it anywhere. And I will find things I'm like, hey, that sounds just like, hey, that ties right in here. Wherever I go, find healthy spirituality. And so that's my experience. So I'll toss it over to Terry. Pew pew, over to you.
Thanks, Paige. I mean, yeah, sooner or later you're gonna have to graduate spiritual kindergarten, right? Like, and grow up, and then go to spiritual middle school, and so on and so forth, right? In the meantime, you got to build a foundation before you branch out. Um, I think the most important thing, I think you're mentioning it too, is to do this not instead of, but with your religious beliefs, or whatever you want to do. Um, Not to just do either or, right? Um, I think I've seen too many people go out just because they became extremists when it came to religion, and they're like, I don't need the 12 steps. I got God. And now all of a sudden they're not treating their alcoholism or their drug addiction, right? I mean, they're treating their defects of character, their sins or whatever, but they're not treating the ism that you got. Um, so I would recommend that. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I still don't belong to a religious denomination. However, I don't have beef with them. I don't have any objections. I don't have any doubt. I don't have any prejudice towards them. Um, so I memorized a few said prayers, and there's a lot that they gave us. So memorize them. Give it a shot. Yeah, yeah. If you do exactly what it says in the previous chapter and exactly what it says in this chapter, you'll stay sober the rest of your life. Point blank. This is not easy stuff to do, but be quick to see where religious people right. Does not say be quick to see that they are right. I want to emphasize that. Uh, if you want to branch out, learn more about inspirational thinking and Meditation, go talk to a Buddhist. They've been doing it for the last 2,000 years. They didn't steal it from AA. It's kind of the other way around. uh, you want to learn more about whatever prayer? I mean, just go talk to mystics. Go talk. That's the one thing that's on my agenda is to go talk to mystics. Go talk about God. You know, and you don't have to believe in their God. And I say this all the time. I don't think it's the name of the power. I think it's the power behind the name, and I think it's just a different dialect with different religions. But I believe it's the same energy, whatever you want to call it. Whatever. Yeah. Make use of what they have to offer. They got a lot to offer. You start realizing they do what we do, or we do what they do. It's kind of funny. Imagine if you went to them with this book. Say you go to a priest with this book and you say, "Hey, recommend that your congregation does exactly what it says on pages 84 to 80, 80 or 88." You'll probably find some enlightened fucking members. you know, we practice spirituality pretty religiously here. Yeah. Uh, this is a discipline. I mean, discipline needs to remain teachable. I mean, this is stuff, yet again, the more you practice it, the stronger it gets. This is where I constantly grow up. If I'm not growing up, because if I'm not growing up, I'm not going to offset my addiction or my alcoholism. It says I'm in a progressive illness, meaning I need a progressive solution. That's point blank, right? All right. So now I'm going to take that meditated state of mind from the night and the morning out with the day, right? So I'm walking outside, and as I go through my day, I may pause when agitated or doubtful and ask for the right thought or action. All right, this is fun. I've done this a lot. I've done a lot of pausing when agitated because I spent a lot of time looking at that talker in my head when it comes to anger, when it comes to fear. But not I'm not really good at pausing when doubtful. And that's been my experience for probably the first 5 years. When in doubt, I just stay in my fear for a little bit unless someone shakes me out of it, right? So what I've been practicing for probably the last year is pause when doubtful. There's a lot of, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's the beauty of being surprised every single day. But I want to know what's going to happen, Paige. That's why, that's been who I was, Yeah, and again, that's destruction of self-centeredness. It's so big. It just doesn't get destroyed overnight. It gets chipped away, it grows back, it chipped away, chipped away, grows back. Uh, but the more I practice it, the stronger this pause gets. And I recommend that you practice that. Practice whenever you're agitated or doubtful, just pause, 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 pause. Right? Even put your alarm. If you don't know, if you haven't had a spiritual awakening, you're on step one, you're in the beginning of the book, or this is the first time you've joined this meeting, just put your alarm clock on for every 30 minutes and pause. And say a prayer. Ask for the right thought or action. Give it a shot. Try it. Keep it as simple as possible. This ain't rocket science. I don't want to make it too difficult to try or to learn this stuff. All you got to do is try it and see what happens. And the more you practice it, you're going to start realizing you're going to notice yourself being driven. You're going to start noticing that talker. You're going to start noticing you talking over people or can't wait to talk about what you want to say after they're done talking instead of listening to what they say. We just talked about that, right? You start pausing, when that happens. And then you just not even do the right, and so you don't think about the right thought or action. You just do the right thought or action in that moment. It just becomes a working part of who you are. All right, here's another one. I used to practice this. We constantly remind ourselves we are no longer running the game or the show. Do it again. You can do that again if you're new here. Put your alarm clock on for 30 minutes or every hour and remind yourself you're no longer running the show. Humbly saying to yourself many times each day, thy will be done. And I stole this from Kurt Z. I like to say, thy will is being done, that means I'm doing it now. So thy will is being done. So we are then in much. So here's our promises, our 11-step promises, you could say, which are kind of cool when you look at them. So we are then in much less danger, still in danger of this talker in my head, but I'm in less danger of this talker in my head when I practice this stuff, especially excitement. I mean, what is excitement? I mean, say if I walk by the Nike store and it says 99.99% off, for the next hour, and then I'm like, oh my God, and I forgot my wallet. I'm excited, but I'm freaking out at the same time because I forgot my wallet and my house is 30 minutes away. And how am I going to get 30 minutes there and 30 minutes back in time to catch the sale? You know, I'm going to be less in danger of making I'm going to pause before that even happens because I'm like, yo, that's unrealistic. I ain't going to make it back there in time. But excitement could be something that's very bad at the same time. Fear. I mean, less danger of fear. Talking in my head, listening to my fears. Much less danger of my anger or my worry or my self pity or I'm just making foolish decisions. I mean, that kind of offset what it says on, I believe it's on page 37. Bear with me. I think I remember that 37. Look at that. Let's see if I still got the memorization down of this book. Yeah, still on there. Okay. In some circumstances, I've gone out deliberately to get messed up, feeling myself justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. Anyone go out drinking or drugging because they had a justified anger, or they're justified worried, or justified depressed? Yeah, you're going to be in less danger of that if you're practicing exactly what it says in the previous pages. This is the 24-hour program. This is what we're talking about. This is our daily reprieve. That we are talking about. This is that one day at a time. I'm not looking at it tomorrow. I'm not looking at it yesterday. I'm looking at it one day at a time. Because that's what I really have. And if I look in the future too long, I'm going to feel so much anxiety, if I'm going to be so beating myself up from the past because I'm not doing it. I'm going to feel depressed and I'm most likely going to drink again. You know? Okay. I become much more efficient. Yeah, that's been pretty cool. I've been making less mistakes as I go along because of my fear, anger, and worry or anything like that, because I've learned from them. I learned not to listen to that talker in my head. I learned to listen to the intuitiveness inside of me or be moved somewhere. Like tonight, I had like 5 seconds where I worried about what I was going to talk about and it's gone. That was not like that before. I mean, I spent weeks and days. I mean, I would write out what I was going to say and put it right up here so that no one would see that I'm reading it. So that and whatever comes out of my mouth is dynamic, and you won't be like, man, this is an awesome speaker. I don't do that shit no more, right? Because I stopped impressing. I'm stopped making foolish decisions. I'm stopped making decisions that based on self that put me in a position to be hurt. It's because I'm practicing this as a way of life. Didn't happen overnight. Yet again, what you practice grows stronger. Just do it one day at a time, one moment at a time, one step at a time. Make a mistake, learn from it. Learn from it. That's it. That's it. Be teachable. That's what this discipline is for. Okay. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we did when we were trying to arrange life to suit ourselves. All right. It works. It really does. Want me to finish it? I'll pass it to you.
Either
I
or,
gotta,
I'm good either way. I just
yeah,
had that thought. I was like, I have an intuitive thought that Terry's going to ask me to look up the 1930s definition of discipline.
yeah. If you can look up that and the 1930s definition of really, I like that too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
then
You
I gotta
finish and
get
then
my
I'll add. Yeah, you go ahead.
yeah. I'll finish. I gotta get him ready for bath time in bed too. So I'll pass it back to you quickly. All right. So it works. That's the good news. It works, guys. It works. It really does. Right. I guess that's the shortest paragraph in the book. Correct me if I'm wrong, page. We alcoholics are undisciplined. Yet again, she's going to check out the 1930s definition of discipline. I believe it's teachable, but I could be wrong. So we let. Remember, I've been recommending past year plus to look at that word let and practice that as a way of life wherever you see it. So let God, that's an actual verb, let God discipline us in a simple way we have just outlined. So I'm going to get out of the way and let God discipline me and or teach me in the simple way they just outlined. But that is not all. Fuck. Damn, bitch. I did a lot so far, man. That is not all. There's more action. Damn. And there's more action. Faith without works is dead. Damn. The next chapter is entirely devoted to step 12. What I got to say out of this is that this is a program of what I've been doing with my feet, not just thinking about it. I got to go out and do something with what I've been given. I've been given a way of life. I've been rocketed into this fourth dimension of existence. I've been separated from this bondage of me taking a needed drink every single morning. I've been fucking saved. I'm sorry, I'm cursing a lot today, dude. I've been saved. And it really is. I mean, that's the energy that I got to it. I was someone, if you met me, there's only a select few on Zoom that has met me in person when I was before I stopped drinking and drugging, that knew that I was no longer going to be alive any day. But here I am, standing 7 years later, because some type of power I listened to before it was too late. I don't think I was lucky. I think I just listened before my time, before I let the gorilla or the kangaroo take my ass out, right? And now I have all this experience from the title page up to this point. What am I supposed to do with this? Is that I'm supposed to give this stuff away. And I think that is probably the most critical thing that I could pass along to anyone. Because you're gonna notice Bill didn't, he just kept giving away for 6 months. He couldn't get anyone sober, but he was still sober. I mean, what happened to Mayflower Hotel? Same thing. He was going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. He looked up in the church directory. I don't even know how many names. Was it 13 or 18? I forgot the number. Between those, and found, Dr. B. And they kept working with people nonstop. And then it became secondary. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I want to pass along to you is that you'll start to love to help people. And you're going to not only just grow up, you'll become someone when you look back at your life that you're totally different from who you used to be. And that old personality gets completely destroyed, and that new way of life becomes part of who you are. And people are attracted by it. People notice when I'm having a bad day. When I get real quiet. I don't have bad days. I have selfish days. And usually when I have a bad day, people tell me, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking? Why aren't you cheerful? Why aren't you happy? Because I'm always freaking happy. I didn't curse. I'm always freaking happy all the time. And they're like, yo, what's up with you? Why are you quiet? That was not who I was before. Yeah. All right, Paige, back to you guys. I have to turn off my camera. I got to give him a bath. But this has been real fun. Thank you, Paige.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Terry. And so the 1930s definition of really is with actual existence in truth. So it really works in truth, our actual existence, our lived experiences that this works. And then discipline, it says mental or moral training. So that discipline is not getting hit with the ruler. That discipline is mental and moral training, education, subjection to control. So I'm not controlling my life. I'm going to let something else control my life. Obedience or efficiency, which ties in beautifully because we're much more efficient when we're doing these things. And speaking of efficiency, that has been my lived experience. When I am tired and burnt out and exhausted and I don't have a reason to point at why, it is invariably because I have found myself in self-will. It is invariably because I have put myself in the delusion of the God chair and I'm trying to fix and manage and control and do all of that. And I am a terrible God. I am an ineffective higher power in my life, but also yours. And I burn myself out, wasting energy trying to play God. And what I want to point out is, as Terry was talking about, we had the directions for when we retire at night, but it doesn't matter when we follow those directions. The directions for when we awaken in the mornings, and this is the direction for how do I go throughout my life, and it ties in beautifully with the 10th step. So it says, when we pause, when agitated or doubtful, I'm somebody, I have a hard time practicing the pause because I have a deficit to my attention that might be hyperactive. And I needed a seated meditation to give myself the ability to pause. And when it says, and ask for the right thought or action, that is a prayer. So again, there's a whole other prayer here in step 11. Shocking news. And when it says, humbly saying to ourselves many times each day, thy will be done. And that ties in with our 10th step prayer, which we find on page 85. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. 85-second paragraph. And so that's something that I'm working like a mantra, working like a prayer. I love that suggestion of setting an alarm or a reminder to go off to, I have a sponsee, and during COVID, she's like, every time I would wash my hands, I would check in, I would do a prayer, I would practice the pause. And so one of the things is this also ties in directly to the instructions we have in step 10. What is agitation? Agitation is a polite word for resentment. What is doubt? A polite word for fear. So if I notice resentment or fear or anger popping up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause and then I'm going to pray. And then if it's taken from me, I go about my day. Now, I know it's not taking it from me when I'm debating as to whether or not it's taken from me, at which point I can then utilize the next direction in the 10th step, which is to discuss it with somebody immediately. And for me, I do that through the columns. Make amends if I've hurt somebody and turn my thoughts to someone I can help. And so, yes, we alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. So I need to be disciplined. Now, I know you guys are always good at discipline, and nobody here has ever struggled with a spiritual routine. And I'm sure you're all going to finish this big book study, do your evening reviews. Well, not Kevin, because he's in Australia, but those in North America, you're going to do your evening reviews and do your evening prayer meditation, and you're going to be on it. But for somebody like me, where I had to build that routine, I had to start small, and I had to build consistency. And small actions taken repeatedly allow me to have this experience. And as we talk about action and more action, I love this series. It's like action. This whole chapter was into action. Now there's more. I got to help others. And that's what we're going to dive into in working with others, how we help others, how we carry this message. But I want to end on that theme, faith without works is dead. And what that means is I can have faith in God, in a higher power, in the creator, in the spirit of the universe, in my sponsor, in my home group, in my fellowship, in these steps. I can have faith in all of those, but without works. And works is the daily action of these 12 steps. And it says is dead. I will relapse. So I can have belief in the program, belief in God, belief in my sponsor, belief in the steps and their power. But if I don't do this thing, I will relapse. And that's a thread we see all throughout this book. I've got to do it, not just think about it or talk about it or pontificate about it or not listen when somebody shares and think about how I'm going to sound when I share about it. No, it's actually doing it. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Next week, we're going to dive into working with others, and it's a powerful chapter. So I'll stop the recording and we'll wrap up with a prayer.